When I was a kid, I had a VHS cassette, and it had 3 episodes on it of a 1970s cartoon called Fangface. It was an orange cassette, I remember, this really vivid, like Flintstones vitamin orange. It was a show about 4 teenagers who drove around in their awesome, The Prisoner-looking car, solving mysteries, which, involved monsters, mad science, things like that, which was the style at the time. It seems to be coming back a little bit lately, usually with younger protagonists. The big twist, though, to Fangface, the thing that made it stand out, was that one of our teen heroes was a werewolf. And this show was my favorite fucking thing in the world to watch. You know what kids get. They'll watch one thing over and over and over again, nonstop, every chance they get. And for a while, for me, that was these 3 episodes of Fangface. It was an old show even then, largely forgotten by the rest of the world. I could never find any other episodes of it at the time. I don't know if I even realized there were other episodes, or if it was a show. I think for a while I thought it was just kind of a disjointed movie. We didn't have cable, so honestly, for a long time, the format of a TV show was kind of alien to me. There was movies and there was nothing else. And because we didn't have cable, I missed the show whenever it was in reruns. Those old programming blocks of old cartoons they used to do. But these 3 episodes we had, I loved them. I think my very favorite thing about Fangface was that the werewolf was the hero. I've always loved monsters, so I've always been a sucker for stories where the monster is the good guy, where the monster does not have to die at the end. I was just on a podcast the other day, little plug here, I was just on a podcast the other day talking about The Shape of Water, one of my all-time favorite movies, where the monster, not only is the good guy, and spoiler alert, gets to live, but he also fucks. We've got all kinds of stories where the monster needs to be destroyed. And usually that's presented as an unambiguously good thing. Sometimes it's played as a tragedy, but it's still kind of presented as inevitable. It may be sad that it had to happen, but it had to happen. The status quo must be restored. If something does not exist in real life, then it must be destroyed by the end of the movie. And Fangface, by its very nature as a continuing series, it has to let the werewolf live. Destroying him would not return us to the status quo, because the werewolf is the status quo. Even all the incidental monsters are usually, captured and sent to a zoo, or they are sent back home because, there's no killing on this show.
The snake's got a new home in the city zoo.
And the Cobra Queen and her men have a new home in the city jail.
So the effect of that is that monsters in this show's world, they are not aberrations of the natural order. Monsters are just part of this show's world. And I love that. I think even as a kid, I was, broadly aware of all this, even if I couldn't articulate it. Now, my older brother hated this show. Older siblings are legally required to hate everything the younger sibling likes. And as I got older, I don't know if maybe it was the pressure to like things aimed at, slightly older kids, or if I just got tired of the same 3 episodes over and over again, but I think for a while I was kind of embarrassed by this show, or I started to look back on it just as, a wacky part of my childhood, a fond memory, but not one worth revisiting. In my whole life, I've met maybe 4 people who had ever heard of it. Probably the only acknowledgement of its existence I have ever encountered in the wider world of pop culture was a song by They Might Be Giants called I've Got a Fang, that is loosely inspired by John Linnell's distant childhood memories of this show, and it never got a proper DVD or Blu-ray release, so I think I just assumed that it was maybe a show that was best forgotten. Now and then I'd get curious and I'd look it up and I'd try to find it, and really for the longest time all I could find was, smart-ass YouTubers trying to be the next Doug Walker. Aim high, guys. And they were, just using the show as a punching bag the way these morons will. Oh my god, look at this terrible 70s cartoon. Oh, what a blatant rip-off of Scooby-Doo. People were so dumb back then. Eventually, I was able to find the whole series on a cartoon streaming website. Some amazing human being had copied it all from some rebroadcast from one of those programming blocks, which is why it has this little logo in the corner, I guess. But I have downloaded the whole show, and I've started a side channel where I've put the whole thing up so you can watch it anytime you want. And you should, because this show fucking slaps.
After 4 months of work, my invention's finally perfected. You're all going to have the honor of being the first to witness...
And so, if I may, I would like to take an uncomfortably long amount of time to pour myself a rum and coke, and I'll tell you all about it. This is a cherry coke. Yum. Lovely. So first of all, you've got Sherman Fangs Fangsworth. He is a big fucking idiot, and he's a coward, and he is goddamn hilarious. There's this family curse on him, right? So every time he sees the moon, he turns into a werewolf, Fangface. And seeing the moon is very broadly defined.
Maybe if I read Moon Man, my favorite comic book, I wouldn't be so nervous. I wonder why I never seem to finish this book. I only get as far as page 1 when the Moon Man sneaks to the moon.
And then whenever he sees the sun, just as broadly defined, he turns back into fangs.
Ooh, that fire pit. Looks just like the sun.
Both Fangs and Fangface are voiced by Frank Welker, who I think we can all agree is the greatest voice actor of all time. And next you've got Pugsy. Pugsy he's the perfect foil to Fangs. He's this grouchy, sarcastic little man who is convinced that he is extremely sharp, which he is not. He is an idiot too.
Hey, this is what I call living. A Caribbean cruise in the Mediterranean.
You ignopotamus! You can't take a Caribbean cruise in the Mediterranean. Everyone knows the Caribbean is in the North Pacific.
He bullies Fangs, but he's terrified of Fangface, who constantly uses him as a chew toy. Pugsy and Fangs are modeled on, respectively, on Leo Gorcey and Hunts Hall, who were a pair of old comedians, big in like the 30s and 40s. They were part of a comedy troupe called the Bowery Boys. I am not familiar with their work, but I do know that Pugsy is voiced by an actor called Bart Braverman, who's a child actor in the Harryhausen movie 20 Million Miles to Earth. And he was also in this one episode of Seinfeld.
You know, it's the only country that still has the plague. I mean, the plague, please.
Next you got Biff and Kim. They are not as well defined, not as funny, but they do keep the plot moving. They're like anchors. I guess you could say Biff is broadly analogous to Freddy from Scooby-Doo, although Freddy's original voice actor does Fang's voice. And I guess Kim is sort of a mix of both Velma and Daphne because she's the smart one, but she also gets kidnapped a lot. But Biff gets kidnapped a lot too. They're usually kept in the background in some manner so that the real focus can stay on Pugsy and Fangs because, you know, that's where the comedy is, and that's a very good call. Biff is voiced by the late Jerry Dexter, who he did a lot of voices for Hanna-Barbera shows. He was in a couple of old sitcoms like McHale's Navy, Gomer Pyle, USMC, I believe he was in that. So I'm told. Again, I have not seen any of these shows. And Kim is voiced by Susan Blue, sometimes credited simply as Sue Blue. And she had a fantastic career. She was the original voice of RC on Transformers, but I think her main area of success was as a voice director. She directed a ton of Transformers stuff, as well as a bunch of Magic School Bus. She got killed by Jason Voorhees once.
Space creature has escaped with Professor Gamble's mind. Space creature?
And the second series also adds Baby Fangs, aka Fang Puss. He's Baby Fangs in human form. Fang Puss is a werewolf. Don't worry about it. He's Fang's infant cousin. He never puts clothes on, and for some reason he has been entrusted to the care of these 4 teenagers. Even when they go to like frigid mountains full of snow, he's still just cheerfully strutting around in his diaper, never cold. He's also voiced by Frank Welker. And if you're worried he's going to be the show's equivalent to Scrappy-Doo, no, he's not quite that grating. Baby Fangs isn't my favorite character, but he's relatively unobtrusive. All he does is say goo goo gaga a lot, and then he'll, shadow whatever Fangface is doing, so could be worse. So that's the lineup of characters, and then every episode they'll be in a different situation. Usually they'll be on vacation, and they get sucked into some caper involving monsters, mad scientists, criminals, the like. And I think that's where the lazy critics stop with their analysis. Yes, I'm going to bat for fucking Fangface. I will die on this hill. They see it's a cartoon about cartoon teenagers driving around and solving cartoon mysteries, so they think, oh, it must be a ripoff of Scooby-Doo. And yes, the comparison to Scooby-Doo is valid, and it is inevitable. It's easy to forget the gargantuan impact that Scooby-Doo had on cartoons in the 60s and 70s. And yes, its impact on Fangface is very clear. But I do want to make a few points. One, it's from the exact same two guys who created Scooby-Doo in the first place, so if anyone has the right to rip it off, it's them. But I would call Fangface more of a sister series or a spiritual successor to Scooby-Doo because it does stand out in a few key ways. The first of which, as we have established, is that all the monsters are real. It never turns out that the monster was actually Old Man Witherspoon all along. In fact, it does the opposite at one point. And as the show goes on, people are just less and less surprised to see monsters. It just kind of becomes standard in universe.
No werewolves allowed in this hotel.
And I can't think of another show that's ever really done that. And also, I think it's just kind of a different style of humor to Scooby-Doo. And in my personal opinion, I find it funnier. If you go back and watch that first season of Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? It's honestly kind of slow and flat. Like, I watched a bunch of episodes of it when I was chasing that post-Fangface high, and it just never really grabbed me the same way. Whereas Fangface is just such a lively and kinetic show. It runs on this Looney Tunes style cartoon physics. It's great. It also plays with some of the rules it establishes in ways that are just really funny. Like, look at this scene from the episode Be Gone, You Amazon.
Huh? Where am I?
Oh, boy. What a time for Fangface to see his son and change back to Fang. Help! Help!
This is good comedy. So calling this show a rip-off of Scooby-Doo really irks me. It's that kind of reductive, everything's a rip-off critique. Makes you sound like some fucking BuzzFeed article from 2009. The top 10 shows you didn't know were blatant rip-offs of other shows. Oh man, The Lion King's a rip-off of Kimba because they're both about lions, but Lion King is also a rip-off of Hamlet because they have kind of similar stories if you don't actually know how Hamlet ends. Smarter media critics than me have pointed out the flaws in this style of critique. It is rooted in trying to outsmart the media, but all it really does is show that you weren't actually paying attention to it or that you actively refused to engage with it on its own terms. This is what CinemaSins does. Don't be CinemaSins. Now, I will freely admit that Fangface is not going to be for everyone.
I'll get us a rope and hoist it out of here.
if you find his voice and his constant snarling to be annoying, I get it. But honestly, for a weird, forgotten piece of 1970s pop cultural ephemera, I found it amazingly watchable. Especially if you like stories involving monsters and mad science and things like that, which I do. I highly recommend giving this show a shot. As I say, I have got it all up on my side channel, Sherman Fangsworth, so I will link the first episode right here. I would say that the first season is stronger than the second. The problem isn't the addition of Fangpuss so much as it is the shortened runtime, from 20 minutes down to 10. This necessitates extreme simplification and streamlining of plots, which isn't wholly a bad thing, but I don't know, I think that it loses some of the twists and turns, which are part of the fun of the stories. But also, the animation budget has been reduced drastically for Season 2. It is still worth your time, definitely, though. I'd say my very favorite episodes are the first one, A Heap of Trouble, A Creep from the Deep, and The Great Ape Escape are both great ones, and those are the three we had on the cassette. A Toothy Shark is No Lark is one of my favorites. The Shocking Creature feature, that's a lot of fun. Where's the Wolf? That's the werewolf. That's a good episode. Dinosaur Days, that's a pretty good one. The Goofy Gargoyle Goof Up, that is one of the absolute best. For Season 2, I'd say my favorites are probably The Creepy Goon from the Spooky Lagoon. I like lagoon monsters, what can I say? Royal Trouble with the King's Double, that's a good one. Kind of reminds me of Castle of Cagliostro. Animation's not quite as good. And maybe I'm biased because I watched this show when I was a kid, and you're always going to have a strong personal attachment to things from your childhood, and because nobody else seems to know about this show, it really feels like it's mine. But I don't think so. When I finally watched it all the way through, that was only like a year ago, and I was honestly surprised how enjoyable it is. So please give this show a shot. Because if enough of us appreciate Fangface, then maybe whoever owns the rights, I think it's Warner Brothers, will finally give it a proper Blu-ray release with like cleaned up picture quality, maybe some audio commentaries or something, I don't know, or at least just give it a good streaming release. And then there will be no need for my Sherman Fangsworth side channel. And only then will I happily delete it. And only then will I finally shut the fuck up about this dumb werewolf cartoon. If you enjoyed this exhibit and you want to support the Mutant Museum, please consider donating either on Ko-fi or as a regular Patreon supporter. Like all of these amazing people, particularly Break System BSC, Zachary Snowden-Smith, and Michael Fattori, and you'll be able to see your own name up here on the very next video for as little as $1 a month. Please also consider following me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd, as well as buying one or both of my ebooks. Links to all of these are in the description. This video was something I had to do and have had in the works for quite a while. My Inner Life will be back next week, and in the meantime, thanks for being you.